Hey everybody, time for the update here at Woodsmith on what's going on in the shop. We're going to start with Steve and a cool plant stand that he's working on.
Hey everyone, this is my next project, a solid walnut with glass shelves plant stand. So I just got started on it yesterday. We're basically making it out of 3 segments, and they've got a little spline joint, and then I had these all taped together and lined up, and then I had them in my vise like so, and then I'd use so I've got them sequenced for 1, 2, and 3 and what faces up, and I made this little jig that would let me put this over, use my plunge router, and I could cut all 3 at once. That way I'm sure all my brews shall line up as I get them spaced apart. So that was a little tricky. Used a trammel to cut them out, and then these are just 1/2 inch legs, 120 degrees apart, and probably go ahead and stain it a dark walnut color, but that's it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on location to see Dillon in the photo studio and in his office.
Alright, welcome to my lair. So, I think last week we had touched on a project I'm doing for Shop Notes 146. This is one of 2 for me. We've got a shop stool coming up for that issue. I just am wrapping up the drawings for that right now, so when Mark returns he can start working on that. However, I do have all the finer details worked out on it. Open this up a little bit so we can get a little better view. So the shop stool is going to be constructed of hickory. So the legs and all the stretchers are going to be either a 5/4 or 6/4 hickory, whichever you have access to. Of course, that doesn't go to say you have to use hickory. That's just a choice that we're making. You can make it out of just about any type of hardwood or softwood or even plywood if you wanted to. But for ours, we're going to use hickory. The seat can is an 8/4 cherry panel that's glued up and then cut in basically a disc or a circle. And there is a very shallow dishing that's going on here, just a kind of a relief to kind of contour your bottom side. The back, what kind of drove this project, other than of course needing a place to sit sometimes in the shop, whether it's taking a rest or you're just working on a piece doesn't require you to stand up, is I've been looking at some of Hans Wagner's chairs, and I really like the way that the backrests on a lot of his pieces are constructed. They're usually done in 2 or 3 different assemblies, and then he utilizes splines to reinforce that joint, but also uses it as an aesthetic element in a lot of his pieces. And so I wanted to try and emulate that in ours on, again, a little bit less complicated and more accessible scale. So it's kind of got this horseshoe pattern in the back, and then I've got actually 3 splines. They're kind of hard to see here, but there are 2 of them a little bit longer. The center one is a little shorter, again just for a little bit more of a visual element, but of course those are really reinforcing that miter joint of your 2 blanks that come together to create that. And then down below here, the 2 stretchers are just these cross sections. The joiner that goes into those is just traditional mortise and tenon joinery. And then down here for the footrest, to kind of tie things together, this is just a piece of 1/8 inch basically strap steel that we'll shape in the shop using combination of a few things. We'll probably, to get this 45 or this angle here, we'll use a vise to kind of, again, hold it in place and also persuade it into the angle we want. We may have to apply a little bit of heat too. And then there is a hole drilled on the back side here that mounts the footrest to the 2 legs in the front. And then for that, I'm just using binding barrels and screws that you can get in various sizes. But that ultimately is what's going to fasten that footrest to the 2 front legs. And then the last little detail on here, I'm going to add some leveling feet. It never fails. Floors are never even. And so I wanted to at least provide the option of being able to level this thing out, again, just depending on what your floor situation is in your shop. So looking forward to Mark getting started on that. Again, sometime next week, probably Tuesday, I'll have material and get started, and we'll just kind of check in next Thursday and see how far along he is. Otherwise, there's another project I want to talk to. It's one that Mark just wrapped up. It's the Architect's Cabinet. Of course, you've been hearing about that for several weeks now. This is it in its finished and final form. I can't quite remember where Mark was last week. I think he was still probably drilling some holes for the pivot on the top, and then adding some hardware, doing a lot of sanding, and then of course applying the finish. And the finish on this is a 3-wax product. It is a liming wax. There's a few different ways that you can apply this. We just applied it directly to the bare wood. I know in the past we've done staining and then applied like a sealer coat so it doesn't blend into the original staining that we did. You could also apply the liming wax to the bare stain if you wanted to, again, kind of incorporate or get a little bit more of a, I'm trying to think of the word, kind of like a chalky look. But for our application, we just applied it to the bare wood. I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. The liming wax really gets down into the pores of this rift-sawn oak. Where it really shines is on woods that are pretty porous, and so either red or white oak is a good choice. Ash is also another one where it really pops the grain on it. But it's really easy to apply. It's basically like applying paste wax. You just kind of buff it in and then wipe it back, and then it will harden over time. But that being said, that's all wrapped up. I think another detail you may not have seen is that we were kind of going back and forth on what we wanted to use for the material for the drawers. So a consideration of ours, as there are many in designing these projects for our customers or subscribers to build, is of course coming up with a great project idea, but thinking about material uniformity. And so if there's projects that certainly lend themselves to buying certain material in smaller quantities if you think it's going to highlight the project. Otherwise, you know, backs of projects is a great example. Unless you have a really big piece of casework, I don't like to encourage people to go out and buy a full sheet of something that they only need, you know, a quarter of. Now, of course, over time, it's something you could use or apply to another project, but don't like to incur all those unnecessary purchases. And so when we were doing the drawers on this, I was trying to think of a way that we could use the plywood that we had to use for the top here that's underneath the laminate, since you would inevitably have to buy a full sheet to do the top. And so we ended up actually making plywood drawers on these. And so it's rift-sawn white oak plywood with an MDF core. And then I think to more or less accent the handles at the top, we just went ahead and painted the top edge of our drawers, and then Mark went back and just cleaned up and sharpened that edge by using some sandpaper. If you want an even cleaner look, we've used a trim router with like a chamfer bit or a round over bit that just gives you a nice real sharp defining line between the paint and the wood. But I thought that was kind of a nice detail. A little bit of a surprise when you pull it open, but again, I think it complements well with not only the handles and the top, but you'll also notice these 2-inch comfort knobs on the side too. Another detail that I'm sure has been talked about throughout the project was this top and how it adjusts. It is a two-person job to pull this up, but basically you have these comfort knobs. The two on the arms, of course, are going to allow you to adjust the height of your table. And then the one above on the back side is basically there's a slot on the back side here on this side piece behind the arm. You can't really see it, but that's to allow the top to pivot in it's It's not quite a 45-degree angle, but again, it gives you a little bit of an angle that makes it a little bit easier to draw on if you are somebody that likes to do shop drawings in the shop while standing. Otherwise, it does give you a lot of versatility in its height too. If you wanted to use this for like an assembly table, or if you're somebody who likes a standing work table, I really wanted to again kind of maximize the use. So plenty of drawer space, plenty of work surface. Again, all in all, I think it turned out really nice in terms of just a good comprehensive project. There's some fun little details that got thrown in there, so it wasn't just, you know, a rolling cabinet. But again, happy the way it turned out, and like always, it's on to the next project. So check in next week. I'll be working on my other shop notes project, and we'll hopefully be done with drawings at the very least, so we can take a look at that. Thanks.
There you go. That's it for the shop update today. Once again, we're in summer travel season, so if you're passing through the Des Moines, Iowa area, we'd love to have you in for your own special shop tour. Just give us an email. You can email us woodsmith@woodsmith.com to let us know when to expect you. See you next week. Bye.